Hi there. My name is Michael McEwan, and I'm the Head of Subject for Academic and Digital Development in Leeds. Myself and my colleague Nathalie Sheridan are going to talk to you today about our support for scholarship at the University of Glasgow.
This presentation is a little bit different, as we are not actually presenting research or scholarship. Instead, we showcase the work of the Academic and Digital Development team in supporting the growth of SoTL in the University of Glasgow. So firstly, we will briefly define SoTL as a legitimate part of your academic practice, including the Glasgow context, and we will highlight main routes with which we support individuals who venture into scholarship of learning and teaching and into scholarly inquiries into their practice. And we will showcase the ways in which we aim to build a community of SoTL practice.
I want to set the scene a little bit about the scholarship of teaching and learning within UK higher education and within Glasgow before we talk about the support that we provide within ADD. SoTL is increasingly used as a tool nowadays to evidence excellence in teaching, and articles by Hutchins and Shulman in 1999 and Caroline Kreber in 2002 demonstrate this teaching excellence relationship with SoTL. It's also being used to support academic promotions. Again, a paper by Hutchins in 2011 demonstrates this progression. And more recently, I suppose, scholarship of teaching and learning is a key component in professional recognition within the UK professional standards framework within higher education in the UK. Despite this growth of SoTL in professional practice in academia, it's not yet fully embedded within the typical academic role, particularly in the UK. That is changing though. In an environment, however, where research is often seen as the king, the recent survey by Pritchard and McEwan in 2016 demonstrates that even with this growing recognition for SoTL in universities and for teaching in universities, SoTL is often seen as a poorer sibling of reputable research, and often it's poorly understood. And a paper by our former colleague Vicky Gunn demonstrates that poor understanding. Um, Despite this, the value, impact, and esteem associated with SoTL is actually growing, and suggestions even that SoTL should become better defined, reputable, and more supported and more incentivised. So there is a need for growth in SoTL and particularly for growing the support around scholarship of teaching and learning. So in the previous slide, I illustrated that scholarship of teaching and learning is actually often very poorly understood, but it is actually a growing area of academic practice and esteem in academic practice. This then begs the question, what is SoTL? How do we define it in relation to other forms of teaching? Over the years, various authors have discussed what teaching, excellent teaching, expert teaching, and scholarly teaching are. And I just want to spend a few moments here highlighting the distinctions between the two. So first of all, we're going to look at the difference between expert teachers and excellent teachers. First of all, a teacher teaches. That's the practice that we're talking about here. But importantly, do they know much about teaching? Do they have excellent performance? An excellent teacher does have excellent performance, but what do they know, and do they know why they have excellent performance? This starts to create a distinction between an excellent teacher who has excellent performance and an expert teacher who knows about teaching, perhaps studied some courses, have lots of experience. And an expert teacher knows about teaching and is therefore perhaps more developed than an excellent teacher. But then we move on to the question, okay, so an expert teacher knows about teaching, but let's unpick that. What do they know and how do they know? And this is where we move on to scholars of teaching. Scholars of teaching, in some respects, are beyond the experts. They're actively engaged in continuing professional development. They continue to build on their knowledge through CPD, both formal and informal, and they remain current and cutting edge, using an evidence base to develop. And this is the question that we then move on to. What is their evidence base? This taxonomy here that you see on the slide highlights an element of progression to teacher development, and primarily consumption of knowledge. A teacher teaches, with good performance they become excellent, then they know about teaching, and then they engage very deeply in an evidence base. They become a consumer of knowledge. But the taxonomy becomes complete when the distinction between a user of an evidence base and the producer of an evidence base is drawn. And this producer evidence base is where scholarship of teaching and learning comes in. SoTL uses techniques of discovery or research, application, practice, like case studies, for example, and interdisciplinarity, for example, mixing educational inquiry and teaching in any discipline, to produce an evidence base or a body of literature and knowledge. Teachers engaged in the scholarship of teaching and learning produce the evidence base. They don't just consume it. This then leads on to the need for support, not just to consume that evidence base, but to produce it. Support in becoming interdisciplinary, support in becoming a researcher into your own practice. Gunn's paper in 2014 highlighted that scholarship of teaching and learning is often poorly understood. And in fact, a more recent study by myself, which is in press at the moment, kind of demonstrated that SoTL is misconceived by the newer practitioners, in particular a conflation between the producers and the consumers of that body of literature that I highlighted in the previous slide. So really there is a need to support particularly new members of staff or new practitioners in scholarship of teaching and learning. And that's what we wanted to focus on with our presentation. How we in academic and digital development support the growth of SoTL in the institution. So primarily, we provide credit-bearing options leading to postgraduate qualification, professional recognition, non-credit bearing CPD, and a network or a community of practice that we support and develop as our support to develop the scholarship capacity within the university. And that's what we're going to focus on for the next few slides, unpicking each of these areas of support so that you can better understand where you can get support from. Perhaps some of our most substantial areas of support come from the fact that we run 2 postgraduate top programs to support teaching development. These are credit-bearing programs. Primarily, we run a PG CAP program, which many of you will have heard about and completed. And this is the main program of teacher development for early career academics, but not GTAs or PGR students though. This has been offered in some form since around 2004 in the university, but in its most recent form since around 2018. SoTL has formed a major curricular component of our PG CAP since 2014, where we've run at least 1 course. We now run 2 courses specifically related to SoTL. Importantly, the SoTL components of PG CAP are elective options for most staff who take the programme, but in particular they are core for learning, teaching and scholarship staff, meaning LTS staff develop expertise in the scholarship of teaching and learning. I suspect few of you will have heard about our MEd, and this was developed in 2018 as a flexible postgraduate taught extension to our PG CAP programme. We did previously run a postgraduate MEd programme which recruited a handful of staff each year, but that required quite a significant time commitment to complete. Our MEd academic practice was developed in 2018 as an extension that enables flexible study, taking up to 4, perhaps even 6 years rather, of more further study, or even as little as 18 months further study. Courses that are part of our MEd can actually be taken as standalone courses if space and capacity permits, meaning you don't even have to study for an award to take some of our scholarship courses, but you do benefit from the community of students on the courses. One of our courses is called Planning a Practice Inquiry, and it has a typical cohort size of around 30 It runs once per year, usually in the autumn semester. Our second specifically scholarship course, Undertaking a Practice Inquiry, is a follow-on from that previous course, and it usually has a smaller cohort of around 15 people per year, and that runs in the spring semester. We do have other courses that are essentially scholarship courses, but those two that I just mentioned there are our main diet. As students progress through our PGCAP and onto our MEd, there's an increasing focus on inquiry as the programme progresses, and this inquiry can be scholarship of teaching and learning, but also just more general inquiry into practice. If you have any questions about our credit-bearing provision, then there is a generic email address that you can contact, or indeed you can contact me and we can chat about it. I was very grateful to a few of our scholarship course participants who responded to a request from me recently to give some feedback that shows how our scholarship courses have helped them develop in the scholarship of teaching and learning. And I've got a couple of these showcased here for you within our SoTL Planning and Inquiry course and our SoTL Undertaking a Practice Inquiry course. So on the left-hand side of the slide here is a nice quote from a colleague on the course. Before I took SoTL 2E and SoTL 2D, I had little understanding of the distinction between scholarly practice and activity and research. This course has helped me understand the scope, methods and practice of scholarly activity so that I can now more clearly see a place for this in my current academic role, and I am able to identify opportunities for scholarly inquiry, both related to the project that I undertook in this module and beyond. So just to unpack that quote a little bit, planning a practice inquiry, that course involves writing a proposal as the assessment, and undertaking a practice inquiry actually results in a small scale output, a project output. And you can see here that this person's actually undertaken that project. The second quote at the bottom there, the interactive nature of Course 2E's content was fantabulous. It's a nice quote, it makes me smile, but actually the important thing there is interactive. All of our courses on PGCAP aim to be as interactive and supportive as possible, so it really captures our ethos. The participant then goes on to say, I kept progressing all throughout the course with in-class feedback from the course instructor and from my peers. And I think that's an important point to note as well. Many of our courses, particularly our scholarship courses, are about peer networking, peer feedback, and building a community. Here's a couple more quotes from participants on the course. An LTS track colleague mentioned that he was doing a course on the impact and influence of learning and teaching as part of an MEd programme. And whilst I wasn't thinking of doing the MEd, I was struck by the potential benefits of doing the course alongside my colleague. Initially, I audited the course, but after realising how relevant and flexible the learning was, I decided to take it for credit, leaving my options open for further study, whether or not that led to an MEd. So just to unpack that quote a little bit, although this is not necessarily directly related to our scholarship courses, it is a sideways relationship. But the key point here is that this student was able to audit the course and then decide halfway through to take it for credit because we offer these flexible options where space permits on our courses. So this student is now progressing towards an MEd on a slow but steady flexible learning pathway. There's another quote here at the bottom. Before I participated in the 2D SoTL course, I felt this was going to be rather challenging for me as I'd never undertaken an inquiry before. I'm very pleased to inform you that the tutor and fellow colleagues and students were all very open and encouraging throughout the entirety of the course. The active engagement within the face-to-face sessions made for a fantastic and meaningful learning opportunity, and now that I've completed the course, I feel great confidence and empowerment to now undertake an inquiry. This is vital for me as I now progress through my MEd. Again, just unpacking that quote so that you can understand the person in a little more depth here. They'd never undertaken an inquiry before, And there are actually quite a significant component of teaching staff in the university who have maybe not got a research background. They've come in from practice, professional practice or industry, and they don't necessarily have an academic research background. So it's quite challenging for them to undertake their first inquiries. And we recognise that in our courses and try and build in that support both through peers and through tutor feedback. And it's very pleasing for me to see that reflected in this feedback here.
So not all the ADD provision has to be actually part of a program. We also offer standalone and sometimes themed CPD sessions. And these are offered either as one-off CPD or as part of the series. And a few of the historic topics we keep offering are listed on the slide. So for instance, preparing to do scholarship, SoTL methodology, ethics of SoTL, writing for publication, creating inquiry questions, and methods for SoTL. You'll find more of the CPD sessions and workshops that we offer on our website. One pathway to professional development, which also has scholarship as an integral part to it, is our Recognition of Excellence in Teaching track, which was developed and is led by Dr. Janice Davidson. If you're interested in becoming a fellow and obtain support in developing your academic practice, either have a look at our website or send an inquiry to the following email: leads-r-t@glasgow.ac.uk. Over the last year or so, I have established and supported the development of a community of practice for the scholarship of teaching and learning at the University of Glasgow. And I'm happy to say that during the last 3 months, the MS Teams site for the network had 200 active users, contributing, using resources, and finding support. Via college and school-specific groups offer their own activities such as reading groups and meetings. I run institution-wide support from workshops around SoTL to regular network meetings and writing bootcamps, which I prefer to call Write and Shine. I also have and continue to develop material which has been popular, such as the 12 Days of SoTL, which was a SoTL Advent calendar going live during the run-up to Christmas last year. At the beginning of the month, I set up a spreadsheet for people to share their SoTL interests and indicate if they're looking for a writing buddy or someone to collaborate on a SoTL project with. This is based on open educational practice where transparency and sharing of interests, building collaborations is key to growing a community of practice. I would like to encourage more people to join in and participate, get in touch with one another. The benefit of multidisciplinary support and exchange has already shown in some cases. And last but not least, I would like to advertise, so to speak, the SoTL Walks, which are organized by a colleague in Australia. And they are a monthly CPD and networking opportunity for everyone who's interested in the scholarship of teaching and learning, to reflect and engage with colleagues from across the world. And if this is not enough to tempt you to join the network, some colleagues at different career stages were really kind to offer us sound bites about how they benefited from the SoTL network. Carol McDermott said the network had provided an invaluable opportunity to engage with colleagues across the university and share good practice. The workshops and activities, such as Write and Shine, really helped to foster a sense of a SoTL community. Linnea Sola wrote, this network gives a much needed and gentle push to make the time to cogitate, plan, reflect and write SoTL outputs through the provision of a welcoming, supportive, fun and safe environment, comprised of encouraging colleagues at all career stages. And Sharon Greenwood wrote, as a new member of LTS staff in the university, the network has provided me with an insight into who is who and what's going on around the pedagogical research. I use it to find out about events and resources to help me with my role. I'm looking forward to seeing it expand. So I hope you have a bit of an understanding now what the network is about. There are also school and college specific activities. You will find all of that in the MS Teams site. So please just get in touch or join the network. Just to summarize, Leeds and the Academic and Digital Development team offer a wide range of support for scholarship through courses, workshops, the network, as well as collaborations. So perhaps in the past, Leeds has been viewed as mainly a teaching and curriculum design support. But if you want to support or even just a chat about your SoTL progression, then please get in touch, contact us and join the network. Thank you for your time.